Hi, welcome back. Time to cut the nonsense. Let's talk MindSense. I'm your host, Meena J.
मन की बातें तो होती रहेंगी कि Putting MindSense में हूँ आपकी host Sarita Chand.
And in the studio joining us today is Ahana Roy. Welcome.
Thank you so much, both of you. Hi, everyone.
Thank you for coming. And so to begin with, Ahana, just tell us a little bit about yourself, where you're from.
Okay. So I'm from India, but I've been here for the last 10 years. I came here in 2012. And yeah, I came here as an international student and I liked the place, so I stayed.
Was the plan to stay when you came as an international student?
The hope was to stay, but it wasn't exactly like a plan until I was coming near to graduation. Then I was like, okay, yes, I'm gonna stay here.
Okay, tell us a little bit about your background, like how you grew up in India,
Childhood.
where from, siblings.
Okay. So I was born in Calcutta, and when I was 6 months old, I went to Bombay, and
Okay.
I lived there about like 9 years or so. And in between, for 2 years, I was in Singapore. Then I went to Gurgaon for my teenage years, and I studied in high school over there. And I was specializing in business and English literature there. Then I came to Canada like about in 2012 for my bachelor's degree. I came here when I was 18. Yeah.
So pretty young.
Yeah, pretty young, pretty young.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, so your parents and do you have siblings back home?
No, I don't have any siblings. I'm the only child.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
And your parents let you go.
Yeah, I'm surprised myself. but I really consider myself lucky that not only did we have the financial means for me to be here, but also that they let me, being the only child.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's definitely an experience being here.
It's like, now your parents are only back home or are they here?
No, my parents are back home.
Okay.
Yeah.
Tell us a little bit about that, being the only child.
Yeah.
How is
Okay.
that experience growing up?
And it also sounds like you travel quite a bit. You had to move around quite a bit.
A lot.
As a child, yeah. So, So why was that? And
So my dad, he is an accountant. He's working as the vice president or executive in global tax for
Okay.
HCL. And my mom, she has a master's in education and she's a homemaker. And yeah, it was personally, it was quite tough for me to grow up as an only child. It's kind of lonely. Although my parents did say there's a lot of advantages being the only child, but they have siblings, so I guess they were comparing. So yeah, the benefits is that you get all the toys to yourself. You get all those benefits,
Yeah.
but
all the attention.
the attention as well.
You never have to fight anybody for attention.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
But also I've seen my friends who have siblings, they grow up, so it was quite different. So what I've noticed is people with siblings, when they're young, they're always fighting or they don't really get along. But as soon as they reach 20 plus, it's really an advantage to have a sibling, especially when the pandemic happens. You have somebody to live with, someone to communicate with, which I didn't really have. So I was kind of by myself working from home. So yeah.
Anna, did you have cousins close by growing up?
Not really. Actually, our relatives are much closer to my parents because my parents grew up with their cousins and in Calcutta. So it was in Gurgaon and in Bombay, it was just my parents and me. But I do see my cousins when I go back home. But like I wouldn't say we're that close as I would like it to be.
Okay. I'm just, it's like, you grow up by yourself and you feel lonely, then you move away to a whole new country. How was that for you? Like when you left at 18 and come to Canada, how was that?
When I was 18, it was very easy. The loneliness only started feeling in 2019 after COVID. I didn't notice it before then.
So, sorry, Hannah, did you have family or friends here that when you came to Canada, did you have people that you knew?
No, it was just by myself. Yeah. I kind of wanted that adventure. I wanted to like discover myself, be my own person, and yeah, I just came here and I studied in SFU.
You inspire me because I think I have been here about 39 something years and I still don't want to go to the Okanagan by myself. So, quite inspiring to hear that you have come and without knowing anybody here, nothing. And
I think it's definitely easier when you're younger because
Yeah.
you're not thinking so much. You're thinking more of the possibilities. But right now, if I have to move, it's not that easy because then I think, okay, I've lived 10 years in Canada, in Vancouver. Even the idea of moving to a different city or different province, it's like a huge change, having to know everybody from beginning with like completely from scratch. But when I was younger, it wasn't that much of an issue. Now it's just like it's more like evaluating your choices.
Now you're settled, you have built a life around you here, so I guess, that's
Yes.
another thing too, right?
Yes, yes.
And it was your choice, like to move to Canada. You had made that decision by yourself, or
It was.
how did you come, like, decide that I want to move?
So it was a combination of mine and my parents' choice. So my parents wanted me to have like the best of the best education, best future possible, and I wanted to just experience just being by myself, learning on my own, navigating the world by myself, forming my own identity, kind of the idea.
Yeah. And then, so what did you study here? Like, which, you came to pursue studying here at 18? What was it?
So I initially started with English literature because I wanted to be a novelist, but that was not working out. And it's great that I did not go down that path. But I ended up studying psychology.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then how long did you study for? And then, yeah.
I studied for about like 4 to 5 years. I did my bachelor's in psychology. Then I graduated, got the first job I got. Then I got my PR and I quit my job and I went back to school again to
Oh,
SFU.
okay. What was the first job?
The first job after graduation, I worked as a community support worker.
Okay.
So I worked with kids and youths with development disabilities. So really helping them with their day-to-day activities, also like just helping them with the homework, helping them with like basic needs and how to really learn how to do those things. So that was my first job.
I'm still trying to wrap my head around. So when you were in India, you said you were studying business and literature.
I was trying to focus on that.
Yeah, then you came here, focused into psychology.
Oh, yeah.
What made that shift? What made that shift happen?
Well, it kind of made sense for me to study psychology, business. At that time, I was like, I need more meaning. Like, I need to solve, like, problems that are in the community. So that was more of that idea. And when I came here, I saw so many people struggling with mental health. And not just here, even, like, at every stage, even in high school. So there were a lot of people I've seen struggle with a lot of different issues related to mental health, substance abuse, and everything like that. So I was like I could really feel for it. So I wanted to help people out.
Tell us a bit more about your experiences that you experienced, about mental health and substance abuse. Maybe like an example from high school and then India and versus Canada here.
So the things that I experienced what I've noticed is it's pretty common to a lot of immigrants and international students that they come here. And the first thing is like, especially when you're young, when you come here, you don't know anyone. There's that isolation thing, how to really face people. I had a lot of social anxiety back then. Just to even pick up the call or just to say hi to someone was very difficult. And also learning how to manage yourself, manage stress, and time manage, really, because when you're by yourself, there's just so many things happening. You're studying, you have to work, you have to socialize, and it's not easy to just switch back and forth. So just learning how to prioritize, manage that, and really focus at that time was a very big deal for me.
What were some of the barriers to making connections when you came to Canada?
Well, in India, things were very different. Like you in colleges or whichever institution you're in, you have only a class of 40 students, and you're going through that same courses throughout together. So you form the friendships, and I've generally noticed in India people are very social and talkative. So I never had to make an effort to go and make friends. I never had to talk to anyone really. People would just come to me. Now it was completely the opposite when I came here. So when I came here, there were 400 students in one class, and making friends in that class was impossible because right after the 3-hour class, people want to leave. They want to like go to their jobs, go do their thing. So the biggest difference I felt was in India when people go to colleges, college is the main thing that they do. But over here, college is kind of the side thing that people do. They have their own lives, their own job, and they're really using it like a commuter college. So it's definitely tough to make friends in that way. So I ended up making a lot of friends with other international students who were very free as much as I was, and who lived close by and was also seeking the same kind of connection.
That makes a huge sense. You think about, going to school with 40 students, and you're so easy to make friendships and connections. Then you come to 400, everybody's so rushing that you don't even have time to socialize with each other.
Yeah, and they don't even, we're not even taking the same classes. So every 4 months, things change, people change.
So it's not the same people. I'm surprised actually the classes are so big for international students.
For university, especially your first and second year, the classes are quite big, especially for arts degrees. Yeah.
And you mentioned high school. Throughout your high school, you had experienced, what kind of, in other people or yourself, did you experience regarding mental health?
Well,
and this was back in India, right?
Yes. So it was more like not knowing what are the right answers, not knowing how to navigate yourself in the world. Like, when you have issues with your friends or with if you're having any close relationships with someone, the focus, what I faced in India was like study, right? Do your studies.
So a lot of pressure.
There's a lot of pressure on that. But what people don't, people understand, but for high schoolers, middle schoolers, the biggest challenge is the social relationships. That's the most important thing. And just figuring those things out. Because there wasn't a lot of avenues to really talk about those things. The focus was all like, why are you worrying about those things? Just study, get your classes done. But how can you focus on your studies when everything else also needs to be figured out?
So how was that for you, especially being an only child? I mean, other people might have siblings, they can go and vent and talk to, but being an only child and not having that avenue to kind of talk about mental health where that's not the focus. The focus is, academically you have to succeed, and that makes you successful, and automatically you're happy, right?
Yes.
So it's attached to that. So how was that for you?
I think as an only child, it made me cling on to my friends more. So my friends became like a second family to me, who I used to talk about my problems because they were going through the same things, right? And for a lot of other people, I've noticed like they have their siblings in their home. They have those people to have that conversations with. So yeah, whether you're only child or you have siblings, you still will have issues. Yeah. So I ended up kind of being like a therapist to a lot of my friends. So just like listen and be there for people. So which kind of made me take psychology, because I'm like, I already listen and try to understand people's problems, so why not?
And like a good point you brought up, when you're studying and the pressure of studying and doing well, and that also affects us internally, or the pressure that we have. How was that, obviously there's a different way of teaching, like you said, in India, and then you come here, and it is not only like the class size, but a different format, kind of different way of teaching, a different culture. How was that, and how did you adapt to that?
So the different culture of education and teaching in India versus Canada, I think it'll benefit differently to different people based on their personality. So in India, like if you're not making up your attendance, no matter what age you are, if you're not doing your assignments, there's somebody running after you, like whether that's your teacher, your parent, telling you, you need to do this, you need to get that done, right? So for some people that can be very beneficial because there's all those constant reminders, there's that spoon feeding that's going on, and that can be helpful in that way. However, it's kind of hard to transition into adulthood when you have to take responsibility for yourself.
Yeah.
For me, I was a very big rebel when I was younger, so when people used to tell me you need to do this, that's the last thing I want to do. So here, I think I had to grow up really fast, really quickly, because I always, my first semester, I assumed my teachers would just tell me, oh, okay, you're missing this thing, or you're not keeping up with this thing. It was not like that at all. You are an adult and you have to be responsible for everything. And that was a challenge because all the courses, all the things you have to do, it's written in one paper. No one's going to remind you. You have to be responsible for getting that done. So my first semester with my grades and my studies, it was bad. But then I learned that I have to really take charge of what I'm doing, and I have to be responsible for what I'm doing, and no one's gonna really say anything to me. So that kind of made me more mature and responsible much faster. I feel that way.
I like to hear. I like that because I'm thinking that at some point you have to take responsibility. You know, no matter who's in your life, whether it's parents or teachers, unless you take responsibility, you're not gonna succeed as much as you want to because it's your successes.
Yes.
Yeah, so no matter how much anybody's trying, unless you are the one trying the hardest,
Yes.
you know, moving forward it depends upon the individual.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. It's. I think there are benefits in both situations, but I feel like having to take responsibility from the beginning was most helpful for me. Because I didn't feel like I was doing it for someone or because somebody was putting pressure on me. It's because I have to do it for myself, right? Yeah.
So I want to ask you, so I'm thinking, so I heard that, you know, you had the financial resources to be able to come to Canada and study, and being an only child, so I'm assuming that you're probably very pampered at home. So, and then when you came to Canada here, you were by yourself, going to school, living by yourself, probably having to fetch your own food and all of that
Grocery
stuff.
shop.
Grocery shop.
Pay your bills.
Pay your bills, yeah. How was that? How was that adjustment?
Actually wasn't too difficult. Except the cooking part.
Yeah.
That was extremely difficult. But doing your own laundry, taking charge of your own groceries and whatnot, I don't think that was very difficult. I very much enjoyed that. I really enjoyed that. Like, I can't imagine not doing some chores. Not because it's my responsibility, because I feel like, what am I going to do with my day, right? It's a routine for me. But I think I had a little benefit that I stayed on campus, so in the beginning, so the first few years, my food was taken care of by the dining hall, and I didn't have to worry too much. But it was really hard when it came to cooking because I never really learned cooking. Also, it wasn't very encouraged for me to cook, so I always used to eat outside. But there's only so long you can do that, and I wasn't like I wasn't having enough nutrition in me, and so I was feeling sick a lot. So it wasn't until the pandemic that really forced me to cook.
The pandemic has forced people to do things that they haven't done in the past.
Yes.
Yeah.
And you know, I mean, there's a lot of international students that do come, some younger, some older, and a lot of them not living on campus. So how was that decision, not like to live on campus versus renting somewhere? Because a lot of students also, you know, rent basements, and they're like 4 or 5 together to share the rent to kind of lighten the burden, which you didn't have to do. So which was one, stress less. So how was that being on campus? And then I'm sure a lot of students didn't live on campus either, that were renting and, like you said, going to jobs, you know, rushing off, doing other things.
Yeah. So I feel very fortunate that I lived on campus. I can't even imagine anybody who comes here as an international student and how they navigate without living in the campus. Because I've lived off campus as a student and I've lived on campus, and there's a huge difference. So when I lived on campus, again, the culture, it was so different. Plus I had social anxiety. So I felt like I didn't have a lot of friends. But as soon as I moved off campus, my social circle narrowed really quickly. So I was very glad that I lived on campus, that at least you can hear people like talking, or you're in the dining
Stories
hall.
around, yeah.
Yeah, you get to meet people, right? And if you're comparing with back home, it'll never feel as enough unless you move off campus, then things change really fast.
Yeah. And so did you complete your studies, then you moved off campus? How did you transition, or what made you
So actually, on campus, there's not enough rooms to live.
Okay.
So it was kind of like a lucky draw, really. They'll
Oh, okay.
prioritize the first years, but I lived there first year, then second year I lived off campus, third year I lived on campus, fourth year I lived off campus.
So every year you have to, I guess, apply again to live on campus?
Every semester.
They don't just, so they don't just renew it. You have to go through the
Yeah.
process. Oh, that is pretty stressful in itself.
Plus you have to move out every 4 months, plus move in to a different room. So it's not gonna just stay the same. So that does make things much harder. Yeah.
And then to find a place, and you went and lived on your own, did you share, or did you find a place by yourself?
Oh, it's Vancouver. It's impossible to find a place just
Yeah.
for myself, especially as a student. So I've always shared my space, either housing, basements, or apartments. Luckily I've had a room for myself always. So yes, I've lived completely by myself, and I've shared this space. I prefer sharing. Yeah.
And so after you completed your studies, you said you started working at Developmental Disabilities with
Yes.
individuals from there, and then you got your PR, and then you went back to study.
Yes.
So what did you go back and do?
So I studied Career Development Practitioner course, which is like a certificate course in SFU. And it was kind of funny because I always wanted to have an office job. I just didn't know what I wanted to do. And I stumbled upon this course, and it was like career advice. It's like you can be a career advisor, career counselor. And most of my friends at that time was much younger than me. And I'm like, okay, I'm already telling people what career they should take. I'm already trying to help them, because that's like the hot topic when you're young. And so I took that, and I really enjoyed that. And I think that course really changed my life completely. Yeah.
And then, so 2012 you came, you studied. Did you go, before the pandemic, did you go back at all, visit, or did you stay?
A lot.
Okay.
So my parents missed me a lot, and I missed them a lot as well. So almost every semester for 2 weeks I would go back to India.
Oh, wow, every semester?
Every semester, yeah. The jet lag was really, something.
Yeah.
But I think after I got like my full-time job, I wasn't able to go back as much. So I used to go like every year.
So that's good that you were still able to go and have that connection and just go back, see your parents, and not wait so long.
Yes.
Yeah. And then tell us, you said the pandemic came. That's when you kind of felt more. So tell us a bit about that, how that was for you. You were working at that time, then how did that change?
And you couldn't go back to India.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, that too.
So,
The pandemic was one of the hardest things ever that happened.
is it what sense?
The isolation. It was just really unbearable. I was working from home, but I was also living completely by myself. And it was a lot of different things that I was going through that year. It was one of not so great years in my life. So yeah, the isolation really brought me down, and I felt like I could not continue my work or do a lot of things. So I took a break. I quit my job. I moved to a different city in New Westminster, and there I was sharing my apartment with some other people. So that break, not having to work, not having to do anything, because even though not having to work sounds really boring, but it was still better than working from home for me, because it was like the first time you're working from home. Yeah, that break was really helpful. I just focused on whatever made me happy. I didn't think about what I need to do or my plans. I was just like, just focus on the now. And that uplifted my mood gradually. And then when I was feeling much better, that's when I started applying for other jobs.
How long was that period? How long did you were you off work?
About like half a year. Yeah.
And so you said, focusing on yourself, what makes you happy, doing the move. Obviously nobody expected the pandemic, and it was, unheard of that this would happen at that time. For you,
Buying or selling a house is a difficult process. Get Brent Prakash from Saba Realty Limited to find you your dream home, whether it's your first house, upgrading, or investment property. Always at your service with a fast, friendly, and honest opinion, Brent Prakash will guide you through the entire process. Get in touch with him today for a free, no-obligation consultation at 778-840-5866. I understand how important it is to have a place called home, and it's frustrating using your hard-earned money on rent. Vic Prasad can make you a homeowner. Get pre-approved services provided to first-time buyers and new immigrants. You can qualify for mortgage even if you have bad credit. Call Vic Prasad now on 604-306-6647. Vic Prasad is associated with Craft Mortgages Canada Incorporated. I understand how important it is to have a place called home, and it's frustrating using your hard-earned money on rent. Vic Prasad can make you a homeowner. Get pre-approved services provided to first-time buyers and new immigrants. You can qualify for mortgage even if you have bad credit. Call Vic Prasad now on 604-306-6647. Vic Prasad is associated with Craft Mortgages Canada Incorporated.